Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
Is most likely a chum.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Thursday's edition, or for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On the, let me turn the map advancer on. On satellite imagery today, again, not much going on out here over the Bering Sea. High pressure, keeping it pretty calm. Clear skies right up into the western interior and northward. Then you run into some clouds back toward Kotzebue Sound from the Selawik Valley. Another band off there to the northwest. And then moisture also streaming northward and then pulling back to the northwest here and over the interior. Snow, areas of snow here along the North Gulf Coast, and rain toward Yakutat. That same pattern on down the southeast coast, and that moisture flowing up into the Yukon, and again pulling back in the areas of light snow or snow showers. Kind of tapers off and fades as you head inland there, and then cuts off altogether out to the west with Kodiak Island. Few clouds early on, kind of lingering through the day, but basically dry conditions. Very nice again, Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula areas. Light winds over the northern Bering Sea, actually all the way down to the Aleutians, and also all the way out to the west too. Really no significant winds going on. A weak system here with a little bit of precipitation out towards Shemya that doesn't quite make it to Adak and Atka. Looked like they were seeing some partly sunny conditions today. And for the back to the west here, kind of a low pressure area developing just south of the Kenai Peninsula, and then the back edge of that front that's rolling up into the southeast coast. On the chart, roughly in about this position, late this afternoon, areas of rain, precipitation, former rain or snow depending upon your latitude and elevation, and breaking out the showers behind the front, a little milder conditions there, and then snow showers scattered back to the southwest, along with the clouds here, with snow up along the North Gulf Coast, northward again flowing into the Copper River Basin in areas, and then back to the northwest. And this area of snow here, or cloudiness, will kind of develop into an area of snow. And it looks like tonight will be right over the central interior, kind of persisting, not really moving too fast. So it'll be a persistent area of light snow in those areas. To the north, though, no change, dry, less cloudiness even out along the Arctic coast. And northeast flow here, keeping it relatively dry, or it will keep it dry, variable clouds, and even off the coast, basically VFR right along the coast, although starting to see some snow shower activity develop here over Bristol Bay throughout the night tonight. Just kind of isolated, nothing really significant, but that's quite a change from what it's been out there. And looks good, northern Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island, light winds again down to the Pribilofs. And now we're just looking at a really weak trough out here to the west with some scattered shower conditions. Way out there again, Amchitka Island, just scattered showers back to Attu, and light winds for the central Aleutians, Adak and Atka. Again, back up to the Alaska Peninsula. And again, there'll be kind of an increase in the clouds. It'll be cloudy here on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, with less cloudiness here in the south side, Sandpoint right up across Kodiak Island into Cook Inlet. And we've got this low continuing here just south of the Kenai Peninsula with another surge of moisture coming northward. So look for variable clouds with a chance of snow possibly getting into the Matanuska Valley. Whatever it does will be quite light, into the Susitna Valley maybe, but more extensive up here in the central interior, and also back over the southeast interior as well. Again, areas of the Copper River Basin, Alaska Range, on up to the north, could see some periods of light snow in areas. And then the Panhandle here, this system rolling on out, and so the precipitation later tonight diminishing, again in advance of this system here. And then for tomorrow, that nudges some rain and milder conditions in across the northern Panhandle. Stays dry down to the south and probably a little warmer, with tendency toward just flat out rain. Yakutat back over to Cordova, and mostly snow, Prince William Sound. Again, west, maybe the Chugach Mountains, but definitely looking at snow tending to increase. Clouds definitely here, even south central Alaska, Cook Inlet. And then this is the trough axis of a pretty cold upper level low here, dropping southward or pulling back. Well, actually it is dropping southward, but staying back to the west. So we've got south to north flow aloft. And so look for a lot more clouds and areas of snow right up the east side of the interior from the trough axis here off to the northeast. But north side of the Brooks Range, not too bad. Some moisture may sneak into the central north slope around Umiat Airfield from Anatuvik and Adigan. But the Arctic coast, not too bad. Maybe a little breezy on the east side there, with those easterly winds lighter to the west, and a lot of sunshine, continued cold temperatures down across the west coast with St. Lawrence Island. Variably cloudy, light winds, 10 knots I think in the marine forecast there, light down across the southwest coast. And the Bering Sea again, high pressure up over the Russian Far East. That's going to keep the cold air in place out here from the north-northeast. So the ice edge will continue to slowly advance toward the Pribilof Islands, St. Paul specifically. And it was about 30 nautical miles north of there this afternoon. So there's a chance over the next 5 days by Saturday, something might start showing up there on the north side. Otherwise, not a lot of change here. Pretty nice Kodiak Island. No storms at all the way across eastern Aleutians. And we're still stuck with a trough out there now, just really affecting only Shimei and Attu. And the outlook for Wednesday, middle of the week, front moves through and dissipates. Another trough swings in, keeping it unsettled there, but no big storms. You can see quite a lack of gradient here across the Panhandle on Wednesday, especially in the afternoon. So mostly cloudy, rain or snow showers scattered around the entire area there. Drying out along the North Gulf Coast, the slow lifting northward. So overnight tomorrow night, we could see some snow chances a little better across south central Alaska and the Kenai Peninsula, and could be maybe a little significant into Prince William Sound, and then that'll be lifting northward throughout the day and diminishing from south to north and tending to clear out back to the west. Probably a little more clearing here on the lee side of the western Alaska Range than what I've got drawn in, but generally mostly cloudy, areas of snow all the way up to Anatuvik across the Koyukuk Valley. Mostly dry for the north slope. Chance of some flurries there on the eastern Arctic coast. Dry back to the west with that northwest flow, keeping the clouds in. And then again, a lot of sunshine possible here for the Seward Peninsula, all the way down into Bristol Bay. Continued light winds, even lighter northeast winds here than there will be tomorrow. And now we've finally got a storm affecting the Aleutians out here. That's going to bring some gale force easterlies up toward the Fox Islands. During the afternoon or throughout the day on Wednesdays, you can see the gradient tightening up here, even the Alaska Peninsula, but the main rain shield looks like it'll stay south, may pick up a few showers, but the bigger rain will still be down to the south, and then scattered rain and snow showers with a little less wind, but more northeast there out over the central and western Aleutians. And so really no big changes coming up for the next 2 days. And then for the temperatures this afternoon, upper 30s to mid 40s across the southeast coast, with upper 30s Yakutat, 36 in Cordova, Portage up to 35, and the 26 there at Gulkana. Mid 30s here in the Susitna Valley, down to 32 at Kenai, 34 in Homer. Right around 40 degrees here across Kodiak Island, with the state airport checking in with 38 degrees. Up to the north, Fairbanks at 28. And Delta at 29, with Eagle at 25 above, and then down into the teens here over toward Tanana, and 19 for Fort Yukon, 22 at Bettles, down to 6 below at Anaktuvuk, and the Arctic coast still below zero, even in the late afternoon in that 5 to 10 degree below range, warming up to near zero at Cape Lisburne. And the northwest interior here, cold air mass in place, afternoon temperatures 9 below at Buckland this afternoon, -1 at Kotzebue, but up to 16 south side of the peninsula there at Nome, 9 at Savunga, and we got 23 at McGrath, cooling into the teens down toward the deltas, and then back up into the lower 20s at Makoriak. For the Pribilofs, right around 30 degrees, otherwise 28 at St. Paul. Upper 30s near 40 out over the Aleutians, and that pattern right up to the Alaska Peninsula with Cold Bay at 40 degrees, back down to near 30 toward King Salmon. Lows tonight down into the single numbers in those locations, but upper 20s possible there for the Alaska Peninsula, the eastern Aleutians, lower 30s for the western areas, and coldest up here north of the Berks Range, back down in toward the Seward Peninsula, where that cold upper level low, and the coldest air is up in that northwest interior area. Otherwise, a 0 degree isotherm looks like it'll be from roughly just west of Arctic Village right on down to near Unalakleet, so a little above tonight for the lows to the south, and in the teens west of the mountains or east of the Alaska Range here, with 20s along the North Gulf Coast, staying above freezing for the entire panhandle. And then the highs for tomorrow, 40s to mid 40s. Some areas could push 50 degrees, possibly down across Prince of Wales Island, but 40s looks like a pretty good bet. Near 40 along the North Gulf Coast, with mid to upper 30s now into south central Alaska. Talkeetna forecasting 37. Same thing for Kodiak, and the Tanana Valley up into the 20s, some cases near 30 degrees up there. And then, of course, north of the mountains, colder, below zero the entire day right out to the coastline. 15 for Zavunga, add 10 degrees of that for the Pribilofs. Lower 30s here for the Alaska Peninsula, near 40 for the Aleutians. And flying weather tomorrow with that area of snow shifting slowly into the central interior. Could probably see some pretty widespread IFR in that zone, another batch off to the east there, and possibly some here from or through the Bering Strait, possibly reaching St. Lawrence Island, and then way out there to the west with that weak trough, and also IFR eastern North Gulf or eastern Panhandle, back along the North Gulf Coast, mostly hung up in the Coast Range, and some more off the coast. So by tomorrow afternoon, it should look something like this. That area actually slides eastward and tends to expand a little bit, coming right up to the central and south coastline. By late afternoon, IFR, Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, and again along the Coast Range, back to the coast there with marginal VFR across Prince William Sound, probably toward, into Portage, and then for Portage into Whittier there, and then marginal VFR along the Alaska Peninsula, northwest of the Pribilofs, and still hanging on to some IFR through the Bering Strait, but the Arctic coast not really looking too bad with some patchy marginal VFR, and then the main IFR holding way out to the west. For passes, Anaktuvuk and Adigan, look both VFR tomorrow, and of course both those passes will be some moisture approaching from the south, so late in the day possibly marginal in the southern entrance. Otherwise, coming down to the western Alaska Range, Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR. And rainy, a little bit better chance of seeing some marginal conditions at times throughout the day. That same forecast for rainy as well, or for windy as well. And for Isabel, VFR, Mentasta, VFR, easy ones. Tanita, VFR, possibly marginal at times as well. And for Portage, marginal VFR, possibly IFR, that would be on the eastern entrance, but just a possibility. I'd say marginal VFR more definite, and for Chilkoot and White, IFR. Freezing levels south of the Alaska Range, up the east side of Kodiak Island, now hugging the North Gulf Coast and in across the central Panhandle with 2,000 feet here, nudged up across Prince of Wales Island over to Hyder and out to the west. Really not much change, a little milder out west, but no big push of warm air at all, and the surface right across Unalaska Island. For icing, again, with that weak trough, chance of some light stuff out here above about 4,000 feet west of Amchitka Island. Nothing across the Bering Sea into the interior. And then the moisture up here to the north, areas of light, isolated, very isolated, moderate rime possible, but above about 3,000 feet. And also along the North Gulf Coast here, across the Gulf of Alaska, but lifting into the northern Panhandle, so not too bad. And the upper level wind flow chart showing that cold trough axis right through here, a couple of centers, one there near the Kobuk Valley, another one south of Kodiak Island. Cold northerlies there over the Bering Sea. It's going to keep the cold air in place here for maybe the next 5 days. And then southerly flow here weaker, but pulling the moisture northward for more clouds and chances of precipitation for 9,000 feet. Low pressure here parked right near Seward, so southerly flow 30 knots right up to the North Gulf Coast and extending in over the northern panhandle, much lighter down to the south. Interior northeast, east-northeast 10 to 20, maybe up to 40 knots there on the eastern Arctic coast, and then northeasterlies on the light side along the west coast and the Bering Sea, taking a turn to the west at about 30 knots towards Shimei and Attu. 3,000-foot winds, same pattern here, 20 to 30 knot winds in a band right through here, and then it lightens up, and then another band from the Bering Strait up along the western and central Arctic coast, maybe 40 knots on the east side. Relatively light winds comparatively out here for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And then the south to north flow here, kind of brisk, 30 to 35 knots, racing right up toward the North Gulf Coast. And could be maybe 50 knots here across the Barren Islands, possibly. That's just a chance. Lighter winds though for the Panhandle, and then east-northeast, 30 knots over the northeast interior. And with that isolated moderate chop here, eastern Arctic coast, back to the west to about a Licktock, and then the western Alaska Range, maybe some light isolated moderate mechanical there for the Aleutian Range, maybe Kodiak Island, North Gulf Coast, and then out over the Aleutians. And after hangar flying, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Good afternoon. I'm Rocky Capozzi, and on behalf of Alaska Public Media and the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, welcome to Hangar Flying. This afternoon and for the next couple of segments, our guest is going to be Gary Bennett. Gary is a well-known avionics technician here in the Anchorage area, and our subject's going to be Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast, or ADS-B. Gary, what is ADS-B?
ADS-B, as you said, Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast, really is a modern-day transponder. It's designed to replace the current radar transponder system over time, and it's just a more accurate, more reliable system for flight following, and also includes the ability for the people who want to use ADS-B in to be able to receive traffic and a weather picture for around them.
Okay, so you brought up a whole nother subject there, but so what are the components then of ADS-B in an airplane? You mentioned ADS-B in, but
Right.
What else is there?
Right. So the main components for an ADS-B system would be ADS-B transceiver, which could basically be something that mounts in the panel to replace a transponder, or it can be a remote mounted box. And it depends, there's a lot of options for people depending on the equipment that they currently have. The two major components though is a receiver transmitter box that handles the ADS-B signal, and then also a certified WASP position source, because the way ADS-B works is it actually squits your position. So that it is a certified box that you can count on the position being proper.
Okay. So does the ADS-B device communicate directly with other ADS-B airplanes, or does it go through air traffic control machinery and then back to you?
Mm-hmm.
What's the method of working? And
good question, because basically all of the above. So with the ADS-B boxes that are being installed in aircraft now, they basically can communicate with each other. So you're not dependent so much on the ground station. When you get into a radar environment, the ADS-B system in your aircraft can pick up an uplink from air traffic and add to its traffic picture transponder equipped aircraft.
And that's if you have an ADS-B in installation.
That's
is that
correct.
Okay, so there's two basic options here: out only or out and in.
That's
And
correct.
and in the next, as we move along in the segments, we'll talk about both of those things. So let me ask you this, Gary: from a pilot perspective, does the ADS-B out offer you anything that a current mode C transponder, when I say you, does it offer a pilot some advantage over a current mode C transponder?
If we're talking about ADS-B out only,
Right.
right now, the only advantage would be that somebody with ADS-B in would be able to see you. Other than that, it's pretty transparent as far as ATC is concerned.
Okay, all right, very good. We got two components then, it sounds like, or possibilities, ADS-B in or ADS-B in and out. What are the pieces of equipment that are required, for instance, to support ADS-B out?
Okay, so there's a mandate for equipage for ADS-B in certain airspace, and that mandate is for ADS-B out.
Okay.
And so what you're looking at is going to be supplementing your existing transponder or changing your existing transponder system out to comply with the mandate.
Okay, so, but as far as equipment is concerned, there's a box, some kind of box, right? And you said earlier that you have to have a WASP GPS source?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And let's see, what else would that involve then? If you don't have any current WASP GPS installed, then you're going to have to buy a box that has that as part of it, or?
Correct. So
Okay.
there's some options to have. If you already have a certified WASP navigator, you could use that position source.
Okay.
The other choice would be to possibly buy a system that has the WASP built in or add a remote WASP box to it.
Okay. So then if we look at that and we say, nope, we want ADS-B in and out, what else then do we add to the mix as far as equipment required in the airplane?
Good question, and I get that a lot. And what you really want to do is decide early on if you want to have ADS-B in, because sometimes it's not easy to add to your system if you've already equipped with a certain type of ADS-B out.
Okay.
And a lot of systems now have, there are some systems that do have a building block approach, and most of the ones we're doing are basically already an in and out solution.
I understand. Okay, Gary, well, this has been a good introductory to this subject, and we're going to continue on our next couple of segments. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Hangar Flying.
Welcome back. South winds, 20 knots, all along the outer coastline here with seas 11 to 13 feet. So we've got small craft advisories out there. Much lighter conditions over the inside water. Still south, 10 to 15 knots with 2 to 6 foot seas. And for Wednesday, not much change here for the coastline. Southerlies 20 knots, seas about the same, but up to 25 knots on the north coast, 11 foot seas, and southeast 10 to 15 from Clarence Strait through Stevens Passage, turning more southerly on up through Northern Lynn Canal. And Prince William Sound, light winds tomorrow, mostly out of the east. North-northeast, Cook Inlet, very light, 15 knots to Kachemak Bay, and then back to pretty light winds here for the western North Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands. Southeast 20, though, for the east side, north 15 for Kodiak. And then on Wednesday, those turn westerly, 15 to 20 knots there across Kodiak Island, into the Barrens, northwest for Kachemak Bay, and a reversal of the wind direction here in Cook Inlet, southwest turning south, north of the Forelands, but staying quite light, only 10 knots, southeast 10 for Prince William Sound. And for the Bristol Bay zone, all the way down to Cape Saracheff, north 15 knots, northeast 20 from Cape Saracheff to Castle Cape, and then northwest 15, so no big wind problems there tomorrow. As well as Wednesday, northeasterlies from Bristol Bay, right on down across the zones there, and then looks like 20 knots will be the strongest area from Cape Saracheff to Castle Cape, hanging northwest on up towards Sitkinak. And for the Fox Islands, northeast at 20 knots, we're turning easterlies here for the central Aleutians, all the way out to Shimianat 2, with seas 7 to 10 feet. And then for Wednesday, a little bit of a change, becoming northeast, not that big of a change, but still at only 20 knots, so some areas of small craft advisories, mostly in the central Aleutians here. and then dropping back to 20 knots, again, or northeast of 20 for the Fox Islands. And the southwest coast, northerlies 15 to 20 knots, all the way up to St. Lawrence Island, northeast 15 to 20 for the Pribilofs and St. Matthew Island, northeast 20 knots in those areas for Wednesday. A little bit of an increase, but not much change, seeing north here along the southwest coast, picking up to 20 knots for St. Lawrence Island. And the eastern Arctic coast, brisk wind advisories there on the eastern zone, falling back to 15 here on the central and west side, and about 20 knots on down to the Bering Strait. For Wednesday, 15 knots from Wells to Cape Beaufort, and 15 dropping back to 15 knots, otherwise 20 knots to the south. Really light in the west side of the coast here, north 10 central coast, southwest 10 to 15 on the eastern Beaufort Sea coastline. And for tonight's weather, not much going on up there. Dry, variable clouds, a little breezy in areas. Otherwise, this area of snow slowly pulling westward, so you'll see kind of a widespread area of light snow through that zone, and then maybe some snow showers. Definite increase in the clouds for the Susitna Valley on back toward Palmer into the Copper River Basin. A little bit better chance of seeing some areas of snow extending up into the 40-mile country back along the coast, kind of breaking out here as this next system develops, and also a decrease in the precipitation later tonight across the Panhandle. And then tomorrow, this rain and warm front will affect mostly the northern southeast coast with dry conditions to the south. Snow here for the Prince William Sound area in toward Turnagain Arm and the Matanuska Valley, an area of snow with a cold trough axis to the west of that along the Alaska Range. Cold and dry to the west there, and no change for the Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. Excuse me. And then for Wednesday, just a weak trough with some scattered precipitation over the Panhandle. Bigger change here coming into the eastern Aleutians with wind, but rain staying to the south.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.